and welcome to the He Doesn't Want a podcast, sponsored by Learners Trust Driving School and Drumbo Park Racecourse. Today I'm here with current Crewe Utd manager Eamonn McCarthy. Eamonn, how's things, mate? You all good?
Good, Gary. Very good. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you, mate. Really am. How's things been going? Have you been training at all?
We have, Gary. Been training probably longer than what we should have been.
Right.
Glenavy's away their way, so we've been training probably 5 or 6 weeks, just trying to keep social distancing in place, no changing rooms, training in groups of 5 or 6 until the legislation's changed. So we're just finished training tonight there. So the Middlesbrough have taken what I think is good standard steps, and they've announced the league starting on the 22nd of August.
Yeah.
So we're only a couple of weeks now. So, you know, it's pretty much full steam ahead for us. Our league would have normally started on the 2nd week of August. Yeah. There's only really a 2-week delay. So we're now trying to get ready. So it's good. Bit of a cat mark there. We were able to get a few signings in early doors, but it's a wee bit of a race now to try and get players in. So hopefully we'll beat that race, you know.
I've seen that the Middlesbrough is the first league to really sort of take a stance and go, we're going to start early. And I actually thought it was a really good idea that they've at least provisionally done it. That gives teams a chance to prepare.
Give us something to work to, because we've been training, as I say, respecting social distancing. We've probably been training now for 5 weeks, and it's very difficult when the up at sort of in tempo ways and running and, you know, sprints and, you know, SAQ. You're just trying to get it right. You know, you don't want to be running the plums of people this time of year and not have football for 8 weeks. Yeah. So it's important that we sort of had something to work to, and now we've got a date. As you said, it's provisional, but it gives us something to work on. You know, where the amateur league again, they're in court more times than Tim Henman, so you just don't know what way it's going to end up. You know, it's like a court case down at the amateur league.
I know. In terms of yourselves, you said you got a couple of new signings in, and you have a few more hopefully get in. Are you happy with the business you've done so far?
Delighted, absolutely delighted. We had a sort of strategy to get out early and do our business, and we've done it early, and we got in. We signed Eamonn McCarthy from Crewe Utd, played 17 times for Glentoran first team before he was unlucky with cruciate ligament injury. So young lad, but ferocious fullback or centre half. Really pleased to have him on board. There's a young lad that was breaking through at the Reds, Dylan Whiteway, tall centre half, went to Knockbreda last year. So we got him on board, which we're delighted with. We took a wee lad there, Patrick Robinson from the West, who was up at Portadown. He was on the periphery of the first team, got a leg break last year, so he's came down with us. Trying to think if I've left out. Signed a young goalkeeper, St Mary's, Newton Abbey, Nathan Kerr, and we've signed that many. I can't remember all the things. We're getting some stick about the money to brought in, but there's a few others. Conal Delaney's just recently signed from Knockbreda. And one last signing from Knockbreda was Noel Halfpenny, played a bit of Irish League. So, so far so good. We're talking to a few more. We signed young Darryl McKenna as well. So the squad's pretty strong. We're looking forward to the season starting.
Yeah, in terms of this season, the aim must be to win the league and hopefully Crewe are an ambitious club. Promotion then, I take it's the aim, is it?
Well, that was the aims from when I first came in 3 years ago. It's been difficult, you know, and to be fair, I probably misjudged the Middlesbrough League a bit. When I first came in, I'd obviously been in the amateur league for all my life, and then a 5-year break, a 4-year break from football. And then when I came back in again, I sort of found that, you know, our first 10 games at Crewe, we won their first 10 games at Crewe. We beat everybody. We beat everybody comfortably. Yeah. And we went to Hanover, who were the future winners, and that was sort of seen to be a toughest test. And we beat them 3-0, and we didn't come out of second gear. And my first impressions of the Middlesbrough was that it wasn't as strong as the amateur. Yeah. So we sort of felt that we could go on and win it, and then we had a wobble straight after Christmas and lost 4 games in the bounce, and we never recovered. So sort of caught us unawares a wee bit. It's a better league than people give it credit for, and it's got my full attention and respect. Last year we started poorly, and we were catching up. I don't think we were ever going to catch Banbridge Rangers, so we weren't complaining when they decided to call the league to halt and not, you know, and finish it in the World of Trophies. Yeah. We were 9 points behind with 10 games left. But I didn't think would have caught them, if I was being honest. So we weren't unhappy at the league finishing. So we've had a wee bit of time to reflect and lick our wounds, and this year we'll be back hopefully full steam ahead. You know. Yeah. Club suffered a wee bit of a setback this week. There's a guy very influential at the club called Jordy Smith, unfortunately passed away Monday, and I'd just like to send our condolences to him and to the family and friends of Jordy. He was a regular at Crewe, very instrumental in taking Crewe forward. It'd be a big loss to that club. So we'll probably be doing something for him over the next few months. But as I say, he was buried today, and obviously with COVID restrictions, we couldn't get as many people there as we would like from the club. So just like to send our condolences out to the family.
Yeah, it's the way things are at the moment as a club. I'm sure he would have loved to have done really something at the funeral, but
definitely. But there was some of the family members couldn't get in, and horrific when it's like that. So it's bad enough losing loved ones without having to deal with the restrictions at the minute. So it's been tough for a lot of guys. I didn't know him as well as some of the boys. I'm only here a couple of years, but a good man. So rest in peace, George.
Yeah. No, it's very nice to pass on your condolences, mate. In terms of last season, you said that Banbridge Rangers were far ahead, so you've obviously strengthened this summer, and then you're raring to go this season. So you've been at Crewe for 3 years. In the 3 years you've been there, do you feel you've seen a progression in the team gradually? It's been getting better and getting closer to where you want to be?
Definitely. As I say, the first year we came in, we won our first 10 games, and you sort of think, this is handy enough, and it sort of caught us unawares a bit. So we made improvements. The team has improved, and dramatically. And this year's probably one of the best squads I've ever been involved with. There's maybe 20 players there that are very, very strong, and it's going to be some headaches trying to get players registered on a Saturday or picked on a Saturday. So, but no, I'm very pleased with the squad, and it looks strong. So hopefully, get a wee bit of luck, and we can go and make a bit of a damage this year.
Happy days. But what I want to do now, mate, is I want to go back. Don't want to say way back in time because that sounds. Go back to the start of your own playing career. Where did you start your own playing career? And
not take too long. Guy, I wasn't much of a player.
Same as me.
I wasn't much of a player. I played up in. I sort of peaked when I was 15. I scored a lot of goals down in Connor, and then I suppose that I went out of football for a while. Came back in again, and probably the highest I played was Newington reserves.
Yeah.
So I was always in around the second team, and then there was like all clubs in around that area and around most areas, it's very hard to get volunteers and management coaches. And I always seen myself as had a bit of a leadership qualities, and I decided to take over the seconds. So I managed the seconds for a year and a half, and with good success with them. We sort of tried to professionalise the club from the bottom up a wee bit, and it went really well. And I seemed to take like a duck to water, and seemed to enjoy it. And the most important thing was the players seemed to like playing for me.
Yeah.
So the first team job became available about a year and a half later, and it was probably a bit early for me. And I went and seen the chairman and said I was interested in the job, Big Burnsy, and he told me I wasn't ready. And I probably, I didn't take it as a slant. I've tortured him ever since. Once we won our fifth trophy, our fifth league title, I told him that I still wasn't ready. But a bit of a joke about the club, but it probably wasn't far wrong at the time. But I threw my hat in the ring and I got it, and we were managed to get off to a great start. And it's funny looking back on it, because there was people at the club didn't want me to get the job, felt I was too inexperienced, felt I was too young, felt that I wasn't the right person for the job. Certain players left the club saying that they would come back when there was a manager appointed. And I suppose it's a big club. Newington were a very successful team before I went anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So it was a big boots to fill. And I always thought Brent Crossan, the Irish News, was my first assistant. And, we were getting a bit of stick in the bar and stuff, and it was getting a bit personal, if I'm being honest. And I remember saying to Brent, we need to get the ship out of the dock because there's a lot of stormy water, and if we lost our first few games, we could be out in our ear here, because half the club didn't want us there. And we went on a good run. We beat a Kilmore side. It was packed with talent, but Andy Waterworth and stuff, and quarterfinals of Stevenson's, and sort of sparked us off. We won our first 5 games in the bounce and didn't concede a goal. So very quickly we hit the ground running, and we went on sort of then. We progressed, and lucky enough, we managed to bring a wee bit of success to that club then.
Yeah, because when you first went to Newington, then were they already in the Premier Division when you first started to manage the first team?
No, they were. To be honest with you, the season before I took over, they had to win their last day of the season to stop them being relegated from 1A.
Right.
So my first season, we finished second in 1A.
Yeah.
And we shared a pitch. I don't really remember, but we used the pitch up at Muckamore Hospital.
Muckamore, yeah. I remember
And,
Muckamore, yeah.
So we played up at Muckamore. Muckamore wasn't able to facilitate games in the Premier.
Yeah.
Because of no fencing and so on and so forth, and because it wasn't our ground, we couldn't put sort of immobile fences in or anything like that. We couldn't build our own fences and stuff. So
yeah.
I had this idea to go to a fencing company, and I got a guy called Eamonn McCarthy, who was very good to me as a sponsor. He's a plumber, and I'm involved in the plumbing industry. So he sponsored us, and we bought a fence, and we got the rubber bricks, and we put a temporary fencing like you would see around a building site.
Yeah.
And we managed to cordon the pitch off using that fencing. And then we got a smaller fence and put it around the pitch. It looked like fuck all in the windy day, if you excuse my language, but it passed. It got us past. For the first time, then the club was able to progress to the Premier League.
Yeah.
And we get up, and I remember very clearly people saying, consolidate and just stay in the division. You're consolidate and let's build it for a future. And that year we won the league, the Border Cup, and got the quarterfinals of the Irish Cup. So success came very, very quickly, and things sort of moved on from that,
Yeah. And the club, like you said earlier, was a big club. It was building success because it had worked its way up the whole way through the junior divisions and the amateur league into 1A, and then had that blip where it was on the verge of getting relegated from 1A, and then you just come in and see a massive turnaround. So you didn't only just get the ship out of the dock, as you said earlier.
The ship was in the dock. The ship was in the dock in terms of it had if results had went against us in the first few games, I probably never would have managed again because it was a rough time. And listen, it was voluntary, and I was a young lad at the time. I didn't need that hassle, and the stick was sort of coming about the place. So it could have went the other way very quickly, and these were big games. And I remember the club was celebrating its 25th anniversary or 20th anniversary or something, and it was a night with Beat Kilmore, and I wasn't going. I just didn't want to go. There was a bad atmosphere about it, and I didn't feel welcome. And we got the result that day, and then we went, and that sort of got us out of that, and we kicked on. And listen, people are entitled to their opinion, and if somebody came up from the seconds now and says I want to manage the first team, maybe I would have reservations. So I'm just saying, football could have went totally the opposite way for me after 3 games, because that's all it would have took. If the naysayers had got their way, we could have been gone before we got started, and I mean that. And it wouldn't have taken much for us to walk at the time, because, as I say, there wasn't just people politics of a club, and as I say, people genuinely had concerns. So these are things that I sort of had to deal with. It was just one of them things. I'm not crying. I'm not saying. The point I'm making is it just could have went against us very quickly.
In terms of your success, but again, there was obviously, it wasn't luck that you came from getting promoted 1A and then the success you had winning the Premier Division the year after. So was there any specific changes you remember making to the club at that time which you felt got you the success that you needed?
You definitely know. I mean, we professionalised the club, and I'd like to think even the people that probably weren't in our favour to start would see that now. We the club at the time didn't have a badge. The club at the time didn't really have any training gear. The club at the time had really nowhere to train. We were in youth clubs, and we were wearing just white gear, green or whatever it was. We didn't have a crest. We didn't have a sponsor. We didn't have anything like that. We mostly trained in these clubs or around those areas, or say the waterworks, using the floodlights from the lampposts on the road. So there'd absolutely nothing, and we sort of tried to professionalise it. And again, Eamonn McCarthy, the sponsor at the time, was very good to me personally, and said, "Look, I'll back you. If you want to do this, I'll back you." And he got us new kits, and we created a badge, and he got tracksuits, and he got training gear. And all of a sudden, then when we were in a away match, we were getting coaches, and we were getting, we're starting to get looked after a bit more. A couple of bars then got involved, the Hole in the Wall or the Chester Newington Road, and they threw us a few quid, and slowly but surely we were able to start to climb a ladder a wee bit, and it was just professionalism. It was turning up for training on time, making sure everyone was training, just the basics, It's funny, without jumping on too much, but I went in to Billy Ewell asked me to get involved in Jordanstown a couple of seasons ago, and I haven't been involved in football for years, and Billy asked me to get involved, and I went down, and they were just on the periphery of trying to win the league, but I just went in, and it's funny, I just seen that so much similarities between that and the old Newington.
Yeah.
where people were arriving late, people were turning up in jeans, warm up was getting done 10 minutes before the game. You know, people were drinking on a Friday night. It just seemed so very, very similar. And I'd always learned the lessons that you let the team make the decisions and make the rules. You know, I always said that we would have a team meeting anywhere I go, and we asked the team to set the rules. So the team create the rules themselves, and then it's if they break them, it's their rules.
Yeah.
So we very quickly, when I went into Jordanstown, I was able to help and just could see the similarities. So we put those professionalisms as best we could in place, and then, you know, it helped us then attract players. So players said then, fucking at a pub team, they're trying the right way and they're looking the part and they're professionalising the club and we're doing the right things. And as I say, we had a wee bit of luck in terms of Steel and Sons involvement. We had a couple of good runs in that. And, you know, as I say, the first season in the Amateur League, we went to the quarter-final Irish Cup. And, like, you know, still have the videos to this day. And we're raw blind down Larne. We were absolutely raw blind. And, you know, it's one of my greatest regrets. We were winning 1-0 after 20 minutes. And I get sent off after 25 minutes for Bogey Bradley scored and we're 1-0 up. It's like Newington were up with probably 3,000 or 4,000 fans with us.
Yeah.
We were 1-0 up the quarterfinals Irish Cup, getting into the semi-final Irish Cup. And at Denver Park, it's very tight. And I jumped on the pitch to celebrate, and the referee came over and he said, "You need to get off the pitch." But I didn't know. I was mic'd up. We were season ticket at the time. Thomas Kane was doing a fly on the wall documentary about Newington.
Yeah.
And, I was mic'd up, had a microphone on, and you could hear the referee saying, "You need to get back into your box." And that's the way he was talking to me. And I said, "For fuck's sake, give us a break." And he says, "Well, I'll give you a break." And he sent me off. And sort of regretted that day. It angered me. They got a penalty 10 minutes later. And then, honest to God, I'm not exaggerating, about 11 minutes injury time he played. And they scored in the last kick of ball, beat us 2-1. You know, we would have played Bangor in the semi-final of the Irish Cup that year. So, you know, for a team that, you know, with all due respect, didn't have a pot to piss in, you know, I think that year Linfield won the cup, and possibly then the runners-up were beat. The runners-up and then the Europe.
Yeah.
So, you know, Bangor was struggling in the Premier at the time. We had if we had to get through and beat Bangor, we potentially could have got Newington in the Europe. I know it sounds mad, but that was facts.
Yeah.
You know, that's what happened. It was that close. So that sort of, you know, the boys all slaved me a Crewe about saying about the snowball rolling, but that got the snowball rolling, and all of a sudden then kids around Newington wanted to wear Newington jackets. And, you know, Rossi's, the famous ice cream place, has a swan now, and the Swans were born. We created the badge, me and Colin Burns, Eddie Casey, good people at the club. Can't remember who else, but all them people then worked hard to make a club and do something for community. You know, I don't want to sound like fucking Bob Geldof, but, you know, it's one of them areas where, you know, it doesn't have a lot, and, you know, seeing putting a bit of pride in people's faces. I remember when we got the quarterfinals and driving around Newington at the time, and people were putting bunting up and posters in their windows, and, you know, I never thought I'd be involved in something that would create such a thing like that. So it was great. It was a super time, you know.
But it's create an identity for the club as well. And
exactly. And as I always said, and I said on an interview at the time, you know, people always wanted to aspire to play for Cliftonville, and so be it. And that's right. You know, the nationalist community in North Belfast wanted to play for the Reds, and I'm a Reds fan all my life, and that's the way it was. But all of a sudden, then Newington people were saying, "Well, tell you what, this wee Newington team's doing well." And so very quickly, like Cummins Star doing now, we created an identity, we created a culture. We had that sort of siege mentality. Everybody hates us. I think everybody did hate us at the time, by the way. I'm not just saying that, but it did feel like that because we got some dubious decisions in terms of ground sharing and stuff like that. And, like, you know, we went to a court of arbitration with Newington. So, you know, I did feel that there was people against us at the time, and it made it all the better when we won trophies and won league titles and took our trophies. You know, I remember being over with the award ceremony at the Balmoral Amateur League, and I remember getting a photograph taken. There was ourselves, Cummins Star, St. Pat's, can't remember, maybe 2 other teams, but there were 4 or 5 North Belfast teams, and they must have had 12, 15 trophies between them. All the trophies were laid out, all the North Belfast clubs that had won trophies. So it was great, and, you know, we were at the time we were leading that charge. So I'm really proud of what has happened and where we are and what the club have done. So it's really good times to look back on. Gary, you know.
See, that quarter final, obviously, although it was such probably heartache for you, so many people watching the game and feeling that you get robbed as well. It was obviously a catalyst for not just the fans and the club, but the players as well to really push on to get that success, knowing how close they were to getting
Well, it was, and then the later years, in the years after that, I knew we were getting closer and closer to Premier teams. We always tried to get a good Irish Cup run, and we played most of the elite. You know, we played Portadown beat us 1-0, Glenavon beat us 1-0. You know, we lost a lot of games, you know, by the odd goal, and I knew that one day we'd catch a team. I just knew that there was a day coming that we would catch a Premier League team, a good Premier League team. We would catch them on the hop because we were defending well and we were playing well. And you know, the other good thing that happened with Newington, taking off the beaten track, is we had a great influx from a couple of ex-Irish League boys who were local lads and who took the team from zero to hero. You know, Shoney Adams, Michael Morgan, Eamonn Lindsay, Neil Quinn, Cormac Brannigan. You know, forgive me for who else I've forgotten, but we got a lot of ex-Irish League sort of, you know, periphery players that came in, and I named the same team every single week. Barring injury, you could have named my team. You know, with your eyes closed, you knew he was playing left back and he was playing right back, and the team sort of picked itself. And as I say, with that camaraderie and that strength and that sort of determination that we built, it still gets slayed this day about it. But the song, Something Inside So Strong, Cruncher O'Neill is a local Irish folk singer over at Snicklewoods, and we had that emblazoned on the back of our shirts, and that meant a lot to me at the time. And obviously, there's a lot of other meanings now, and I respect that. But at the time, we were very early with that, and we had Something Inside So Strong in the back, and again, without getting carried away. But the words like, you know, when they say you're just not good enough, and we're going to do it anyway. And those songs, those lyrics resonated with what we were trying to do as a football club, and it fitted in well. And I remember when we got the quarterfinals Irish Cup, the UTV contacted me, Neil Britton at the time, and he said to me, "Can you get me that CD with Cruncher singing that song?" But at the end of Cruncher shouts Chucky Our Lad at the top of his voice. So I had sort of said to Neil, "Listen, you might have to dub out the line." He says, "Listen, big man, I know it says Chucky Our Lad," but he was laughing. But it was just, that's what happened at the time. But we had it on the back of our shirts, and I say that sort of emblazoned what we were about and what we were trying to achieve as a club and as an identity. And as I say, I knew that the day was coming, maybe not the Free Ireland, but the day was coming when we were going to turn over an Irish League team. I knew it was coming, and lucky enough, it happened that day at the Oval when we beat the Glens.
Yeah, and what a day it was beating the Glens for Newington. What a day it was.
Unbelievable. I'll probably answer some of your questions here now, but it's the best day of my sporting life by a mile. My father, my elderly father, was at the game. My daughters, my wife was at the game, and you know, people talk about highs, and you know, obviously people take things that make them high.
Yeah. That
pure adrenaline from that whistle being blew, I've never experienced anything like it in football. Never ever experienced anything like it, and I don't think I ever will. I'm a sort of pessimist, and I was sort of, you know, I was trying to calm the team down at half time, and I was trying to make it out that it was just another game, and you know, and then in the second half I sort of went, if we could hold this to one each, you know, and get a replay financially for the club, it'd be a good outing. And
yeah.
So we're sort of feeling that, and then you go with 10 minutes to go. But I was still thinking, like, they'll get one as long as they don't get two at this stage. And then 5 minutes to go, you're thinking, maybe they're not going to get the one after all. And you sort of got closer and closer to time. And then Ross Dunlap was a referee, and he was a referee in the amateur league, and me and Ross got on very well. And I remember coming over, and he says, "Ross, what do you reckon?" He says, "There's two, and there's be two extra or something like that." And it was just like a bit of a haze. And then, but when that whistle blew, I'm even getting a bit goosebumps was talking about it when the whistle blew. It was powerful. I remember jumping the fence behind the dugout at the Oval. I jumped on the fence, and I remember up on the fence, and I was looking down. I didn't realise how high it was. I don't know how I get up there. I was sort of saying, "Fuck, I don't know how I get down again." But it was just adrenaline, and that adrenaline I've never seen. I've never witnessed in sport. You know, say, I had a mediocre football playing career, and you know, I never wasn't good enough to go into the change rooms at the Oval or the change rooms at Glenavon at Portadown, and my management got me there, and I enjoyed it. And when the whistle blew, it was just very emotional. It was a great day, and as I said, there was loved ones in the stand, and you know, even the Glentoran fans, the good Glentoran fans, football fans, were very, you know, they waited behind on us. We celebrated over at our end, and then obviously we had to walk across the pitch, and a lot of them stayed to clap us off. You know, they were busy throwing scarves and throwing other things at Scott Young at the time, but they waited on us coming off and give us a round of applause, which I always remember. It always sticks with me this day.
Yeah.
You know, it always sticks with me how receptive the good fans were. A lot of the fans that stayed behind the clap us off, because it was an amateur league club, you know. And I don't say this lightly. I don't think it'll ever happen again. I don't see an amateur league club beating one of the big two again. You know, I think it was monumental what we've done, and I enjoyed it. And you know, we're talking about the finances of the club. At the time, the club, everybody in the team paid a fiver. And people still laugh at me and say, you must have been paying Big Adams, you must have been paying Stud. The truth of the matter was, every player paid a fiver. And we were driving down the Adam Road on our minibus to go to the Oval, and I said, give us your fivers, lads. And they were going, this he's fucking winding us up. We're not paying fivers. Just give me your fivers. So it was 80 quid or something at the time. And I stopped at the top of New Lodge, the bookies, and Eamonn had 80 quid on. Newington at 25 to 1. I had the 80 quid on us, and we drove and played the game, and obviously then we were able to come back, and we lifted it on the way up the road. So it was a lot of money there to drink that night. Celebrations were paid for. But there's a funny story. My coach at the time was Sean Paul Murray. Somebody was slagging me on Twitter saying 27 assistants, but
I see that.
It was actually 32. But, we got a text. I never got as many texts in all my life. There's people texting me and don't know how they got my number. But anyway, there's a lot of people texting Cratsley, which was nice. And Sean Paul Murray was my coach at the time, and he was a prominent figure in the IFA. And somebody got his number from a coaching session, and they wrote on to it. None of these Fenian bastards will make it to Mass somewhere. But congratulations to everyone of you. I hope you have a fantastic night. No surrender. All the best. Linfield, East Belfast Linfield Supporters Club. And I remember this day, you know, and I was laughing my head off. Like, they were that happy at Glentoran getting beaten in the Irish Cup. And they took a time out. But I remember the opening line was, hope these Fenian bastards will not make it to Mass in the morning. I was laughing my head off. You know, somebody's took a time out. He abuses, but the credit is at the same time. So it was a good laugh. And as I say, you know, Joe McDonald had to try and steal the limelight as usual by defecating, I think it's called, or defecating on the dance floor.
The dance floor, aye.
The dance floor, aye, you know. So that's Joe all over. Like, we're just talking about the days, thinking about him. And, you know, I remember playing down at Mollusk, or down at Malacans, and there was a bit of a brawl. Joe had got sent off early in the game, and a bit of a brawl. And, like, I don't know why you know, but Joe McDonald couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Like, he couldn't hit the base. He's a worst fighter I've ever seen. And he comes out in his boxer shorts, and he looks apart now. He's tan, he's wearing Calvin Klein whites, and he came out trying to get into that boxing. He looks stunning, but I swear to God, he couldn't beat Kissie's drum. And then he was giving our big goalkeeper at the time, Big Dean Smith, he was giving him abuse at the Christmas dinner. He was steaming, and he kept throwing sprouts at Big Dino's head. Big Dino was cracking up. So we're coming out of Chester, and we had a game that day down in Institute. We'd been in Institute in a cup match, and we came back up, and crack was brilliant. And so Joe's still torturing Dino at this stage. So I said, Dino, you may do something here. So Joe comes over at him, letting on the shadow box him. Big Dino throws a big fucking looper, connects him, knocks Joe's sparkers, right? So I'm going, Jesus Christ, I better get out of here. So I goes home next day. So, no, your goalkeeper's broke his hand, he's out for 6 weeks, and your centre midfielder's broke his fractured his jaw, he's out for 8 weeks. So I was a typical Newington
Brilliant. And Joe's in the middle of it, of course.
He starts it all, then to back it up.
See, in terms of like your aims as Newington manager, you were so successful in the amateur league. It's I'm sure people on the outside of your bubble within the club thought you were mad when you said you could take on the top clubs in the Premier Division, even though you're so successful in the amateur league. So I can see why that was such a highlight, beating the Glens, because it almost became accustomed to winning trophies, and then your aspirations were so much higher at that stage. Yeah.
Well, won 5 league titles, won the Premier League 5 times, and a couple of times we should have won it, but I think I was there 7 years, maybe longer. But I remember I was in the Premier League maybe 7 or 8 years, and we won 5, and there was a couple were stupid, we threw away, and you know. But it's funny. My wife, I kind of kept the scrapbook and look back at it sometimes. Or during lockdown, we were looking through it, and I remember doing an interview the first year we won it. Kelly Lay had won it 7 times in a row.
Yeah, that's right.
And the next year we won it. Big Davy Jeffries presented the trophy, and he sung our praises so much that night. And I'll never forget Big Jeffries had, you know, the presentation. He was very good, and he sung our praises, and he said he'd watched us, and very full of admiration what we'd done. And you know, but it was funny because we played Killyleagh in the last day of the season. It's funny how fixtures, you know, work out. We had won the league with a game to spare, and then our last game was Killyleagh, and they had to clap us in on the pitch.
Right.
And to me, and I said it at the time, and it looked very bullish, and it looked very. People probably looked at him and went, "He's fucking full of shit." But I remember speaking to Dehorn. Dehorn's a good friend of mine and a very respectful guy. But I remember saying this is the passing of the guard. You know, Killyleagh, you know, they were an agent side, they were a good side and a great side. But that was a passing of the guard. And I knew we would, if we got our heads together and we got a pitch and got somewhere to play football, we were a football side. Mucklemore didn't suit us, obviously. But I knew we would be hard to beat over years to come, and that proved the case. If we had a settled pitch in the team, I think it would have drove us on to greater things within the amateur league. Yeah. But certainly, once we'd conquered that and we'd done our business, I always eyed up a famous victory. You know, Glenavon were beating us 1-0 during a hailstone and a real bad day, and they were playing with Guildford in the first half, and they were beating us 1-0. And I just knew if we could move for the second half, we beat them. And the bond in at half time, but that was a game of very close in. And then we played Glenavon again. Stephen Bride was the manager, and we drew 0-0, and he lost his job after that. So Marty Kuhn came in, took after Big Rascal, and they beat us in the replay. But you know, I just knew that we were on the periphery of doing something. I signed that goat Skin Little. Again, good mate of mine, but I signed him, and we're playing Portadown, and we matched Portadown all over the park. We were very good that day, and he gave away a free kick, 25 yards out. Braniff, big arse Braniff stuck his arse in the way, and Skin brought him down, and Braniff put it in the top corner. McCutcheon, one or two of them, can't remember, but somebody put it in the top corner, beat us 1-0. I never forgive him for it, you know, and I still slag him this day about it, but I just knew that we were on the periphery with a lot of chances that day, and things were just. I just knew that once this was going to fall in our favour. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have wanted it to fall in any other place. It was going to fall. That's the day you wanted at the Oval, one of the biggest, most famous grounds in Ireland. You know, famous club, famous people, widely known for good football people. Brilliant place to win. You know, every time I do a lot of flying to England, we're working, and every time I fly over the Oval or come into George Best, it always gives me a wee smile that we've done and we achieved that, you know.
Yeah. In terms of like then off a pitch and anything, he's done a lot in the community, but I'm sure something that really probably rankled yourself at the time there was that you couldn't get a home within North Belfast in your community.
But it's madness. It's absolute ludicrous, and it doesn't make sense to me. You could ground in that year. You could ground share in every league in Ireland, North and South, every league except the Premier Division of the amateur. Yeah. So you could have come in and say 2E or 2D, whatever, and you could win every single league with a ground share. And then when you got the amateur Premier Division, you couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
Now we were on a cross community project with Crusaders, so they were helping us with funding to pay for the pitch. So our home ground is Seaview.
Yeah.
So guys like me who were never good enough to play Irish League were getting the chance to play on an Irish League surface every week when they played us. And we were able to play a match on a Friday night under lights and the changing rooms. And Crusaders had just laid their new plastic surface.
4G, yeah.
It's probably one of the best in the country, and it just seemed ludicrous. And like I remember going to the Court of Arbitration because amateur league wouldn't budge, and we took legal advice and we've done this and we've done that, and we weren't budging. And then we got the Court of Arbitration to come over. Remember, it was next to Northern Ireland International, Big Murdoch. Colin Murdoch was on the panel. I remember it's like a big court case, and they were tying them in the amateur league and knots, and I was still looking at going, is this for real? Like the amateur league was saying this, where do you play? I said, where do you play all your blue ribbon advance? You know, where's the Border Cup final play? Where's the Clarence Cup final play when you scan? You know, Seaview. So why can't we play at Seaview?
Yeah.
But it's not yours. And I know, but you know, this is a state-of-the-art facility. We're taking the amateur league forward. You know, you use it for your blue ribbon events. But I remember somebody from one of the Court of Arbitration, guy from London, says, so you're telling me if Inter Milan and AC Milan entered the Premier League, amateur league, they couldn't play in it? You know, man, no, wouldn't be allowed. And then going, like, you know, it's all right saying there's no ground in North Belfast, there's no facilities. there's a big stadium called Sea Solitude lying empty every second Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a stadium called Seaview lying empty every Saturday. Second Saturday when the Crews are away. Why not use it?
Yeah.
Why not use it? It just didn't make sense to me. And we were sharing Bertie Shaw, a guy Lauren contacted me, and I thought it was a wind up. He offered us to play at the Cliff, and I loved it, the place, but it was Larne. We were playing Malacans in a derby in Larne. It just didn't make sense to me. So it did irritate me. It really, really did irritate me. And listen, I'll be very straight and honest. I've got a lot of stick from Newington for taking them into the championship and then leaving afterwards. People feel that we shouldn't have went into the championship. But the option at the time for me was to take relegation. And I had fought hard to dominate Premier League and to dominate amateur football. There's no way I was taking relegation. I didn't think it was right. And I thought, and I called all the players in their meeting pre-season that year. And they'll do with us what they'll do now. They'll hold the league back, and then the teams that have the complaint then will be seen to be the bad guys. So the league was due to start, say, on the 8th of August. They held the league back. They wouldn't let the league start for 2 to 3 weeks. And whenever Emery says, what's happening? Well, Newington have an appeal in. So they were making us look like a big bad wolf. And like, you were walking down the street and people were saying, fuck you can't play football. And it was our fault. We were seen as the perpetrators, and that always wrangled with me. And I pulled the players into the meeting, and I said, there's 2 options. We take a relegation and go into 1A and Grand Shirt Seaview, or we can play 1 season at the Cliff and we'll win the league. We'll put our heads together and we'll go and win it, and we'll get promoted and we'll win the championship. And everybody voted unanimously that's what to do, and that's what we've done. And we started the league. The league started 4 weeks late. The first 2 weeks nobody was allowed to play, and then the next 2 weeks we were the only team weren't allowed to play. So by the time we started our campaign, we were 6 points behind, but we made it up. We had a steeliness and a determination that we won the league at a canter, and we were fortunate enough in the playoff. We were the first team to win the playoff and go up from Amateur League, and beat Donington over 2 legs. So again, people say I had Newington the infrastructure to go to the championship, and I don't disagree with that. And I know now, but look at now. I mean, beating semi-finals, beating Steenson's finals last year, and won it 2 years previous to that. So the club's in good footing. So I'm pleased, and it's still a club that I've for the last 10 for. It's my club,
Yeah. In terms of then going into the championship and being in the championship, I'm sure you thought there was the potential there that the club could be really successful in the championship, because the big away days you had in Irish Cup, etc., you had a load of fans there. There was a potential for the club to succeed, and then did that just not materialise once you got into the championship? Or
no, it didn't. It didn't. And performances and attendances were both very similar, because we could raise our game at any time to beat an Irish League team or a championship team, or very few championship teams beat us. We had a very good record against them, but we lifted our game on that day.
Yeah.
When we were asked to do it every week, it was difficult. But the first season we were in the championship 2, we finished 3rd or 4th, so we weren't that far away. The league has dramatically improved since restructuring has come in.
Yeah.
But we weren't that far away. But you're right, the attendance didn't happen. For one reason or another, Clinwell had a bit of form. My old friend Tommy Breslin, God rest him, built a great side, and they started to attract big numbers again, and went on to win the league. And that cup, that league team started to attract the people in North Belfast back into the turnstiles of Solitude again. So, we didn't get that following that we maybe hoped for. But it was what it was. People say it was a choice that we maybe shouldn't have made. I didn't see it as a choice. I thought it was an ultimatum for Amateur League, and I wasn't going to back down. I didn't feel it was right for us to be demoted after doing what we'd done. And when we asked the Amateur League why they'd done it, they said, "Well, we had a vote." And I said, "Fuck, that's like asking Man City and Liverpool or Man City and Man United just want Liverpool put out of the league. Do you know what I mean? There's only one way they're going to vote." So the arbitration seen all that, and they were very sympathetic towards us. Normally, the loser has to pick up the fee, and the case was that close that they split the fee. They just split the fee 2 ways, but they did. bear down on the side that the Amateur League has rules, and they were saying that. So I'll give you an example. I remember a guy said on the panel and said, so if you want to, if a member club says you have to wear pink kits on a Saturday, and he gets enough votes, so all teams had to wear in the Amateur League, but he said, yeah. And I was going, I guess it can't be right. And without getting into a whole, political storm, that's the reason we're in the position we're in now. Because they're saying about clubs voting with self-interest. Of course, they're going to vote with self-interest.
Yeah.
How are they going to vote? They're saying the Irish League, how was it going to be finished? And they had this delegation and they've done this and done that and the other. And they said there was self-interest. Of course, there's self-interest. Who in their right mind is going to vote? Why would Clonmel vote to end the league when they were 2 games away from getting into Europe?
Yeah.
Maybe £250,000 on the line. What was Jared Lawler going to do? He's only going to vote one way. And that's what happened to us. They were sort of saying, do you want Newington to ground share? And the other teams were saying no, because they're winning every year. So I thought it was asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. And as I said, there was a lot of politics at the time, but, that's in the past now, thankfully.
Yeah. And then when you eventually left Newington, was that just you felt your time was up at the club and maybe somebody else could bring the club in a different direction, or?
No. I tried to do a lot for the club on and off the pitch. I tried to be the spokesperson. I tried to go to meetings and I tried to get sponsorship, and I tried to run the club successfully, and I tried to help bring in 9 teams through. And so I worked hard for Newington, and then I was offered a directorship of a building company, and I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And I knew it was, to be honest, I was nervous about taking the position, and I had doubts whether I was capable of it. And I knew one thing, that I had to commit to it. I couldn't go in and let my family down and not be successful. So, one thing that always drives me on is fear of failure, and that fear of failure was there, and I didn't want it not to work. So I thought at the time it was time to step down, and that was the reason. But I stepped down and I was gone, and then about 6 or 7 months later, I was really missed it, and I was struggling a bit, because it'd been for 15 years, it'd been Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, and all of a sudden had this void on a Saturday, and I really, really missed it. I really missed it, and I was getting involved in things that I shouldn't have been doing. Not like Joe McDonald, but I was gambling and I shouldn't have been, and it's an old affliction that I had, and it just wasn't working out. I was sitting in the house on a Saturday, my wife was going shopping, she was near my kids, and I was sitting there, and there was racing on, there's football on, and I'm sure a lot of boys out there can reminisce with what I'm saying. It was difficult times. So I got an opportunity to go. I threw my hat in the ring for Distillery, and I'd always been a big Irish League fan. With a season ticket at Solitude for 10 years. I've been brought up in Irish League football, and I seen the job was advertised. And I'd never applied for a job in my life, so I put my hat in the ring, and I got the job. Distillery were struggling at the time, and they were getting it tough on and off the pitch. It was a very, very hard season. We were losing a lot of games, and I hadn't got my badges at the time, and still don't have them. But it was difficult at the time, so it probably wasn't a great baptism to get back in again. So I stayed there till the end of the season, and then I had a bit of a sickener there, and I sort of get back into work again. And then, as I say, a few years passed, and then Jordanstown, Billy Ewell asked me to help out, and we managed to go down, and just a couple of subtle changes and helped them doing the league that year. And again, without, you just sort of feel that if you're offering something, you've something to offer. So I sort of knew that when the boys listened to what I was saying, and when I went into the changing room, you sort of knew the boys were listening to you, and we were able to not turn anything around, because we're going well. It wasn't miracles, but I was able to bring in a few good players, a few good steady ships that I've been managing for years, and big Jim McManaman back, and Ronan Brannigan, Gary Rafferty up front, and a couple of them boys all came with me, and the spine of the team improved, and as I say, the wee bit of professionalism helped drive it on. So once we won the league that year, I sort of knew that there was something that was there. It was a talent that I had, and I would be best suited to go back in. So Jared Little recommended me for Crewe, and Thomas McKenna contacted me, and I played at Crewe when I was a kid. Played for the reserves when we Tommy Breslin was managing the first team, and I played with Thomas McKenna, who runs the club now. And, I knew the facilities were unbelievable, and I hadn't been in a while, so I went out and I seen it. And the facilities have improved tenfold since I was there, and it's absolutely unbelievable. There's Irish League clubs, the top 5 Irish League clubs wouldn't have the facilities that club has. It's absolutely unreal. You know, there's so many good people at the club, and it's just a family-run club. My wife and kids, and they come to games, and that's important to me now. And you know, I just love to give them a bit of success. You know, and that's what the aim is. You know, you said at the start there, have to win the league, but you know, but listen, Ballymacaish are saying the same thing, and Arbitration Rangers are saying the same thing, and Hanover's and Oxford United Stars, and it's a very, very strong league. So they'll have the same questions as we do. But I fell in love with the club, and I've really enjoyed being back. You know, I've a good team around me. Ronan Skinnell, ex-Clonmel legend, has been very, very good with me. He's very level-headed and quiet, and speaks well, where I'm a bit of a nutcase, shouting and roaring. You know, he's the sort of calm head that works for a zing and zang. And so I've enjoyed that. Cian O'Connor was there for a while. And then Sean Brown, we Saucy come in with me this year too. So training's good fun. You know, there's a good atmosphere about the place, and sometimes we're laughing too much to win matches, which is a bit of a problem. But crack's brilliant. You know, if we Stephen Sauce up there, you know, Stephen Brown, we Saucy. He's a sort of mascot. You know, he's not good enough to play anymore. So we'll get a few quid off him sponsorship. So that's the only reason why he gets in the team. We'll let him travel the away games and stuff, you know. He thinks he's a cracker, but he's gone. But don't be telling anybody. But he sort of sponsors us now. He's a wee talent shop, and he sponsors a few of us. So sort of have to keep him at 16, you know. But,
your boys will be coming out in the pitch next year, all bronzed up, so all ready to go.
That's some of these shirts, white to brown. But he get in the array with Big Darn McNamee. Remember Big Darn McNamee?
I know Darn, yeah.
Big's mates were slagging him around, but Saucy thinks he's a hard man. And he had white to brown on the front of his shirt, and he bumped into Big Darn. Big Darn was going to pull his head off, and we all said he went brown to white very quickly. So his nickname's brown to white up there. But listen, he's a good lad to have about the place. He's funny. He'd be sort of like the Connor Burns of Crewe. You know, he's there. He's witty, he's slagging, he likes a bit of banter, and about. So it's unfortunate he's not getting the game anymore, but he's a good lad to have about the place. Yeah,
the likes of Saucy as well, but the Crum and Star connection as well. That they're used to success, with just like yourself at Newington. So you've a winning mentality in the club.
It's born winners. He's a born winner, and that's why we got him in. You know, I tried to get him last year, tortured him last year, and it wasn't for him. And you know, and listen, if somebody said to me, come in and help me out, I don't know now whether I could do it. At the end of the day, I'm not a coach. You know, they're all hands-on. So, you know, I'm not really hands-on. So there can only be one of me, you know, because it'd be different if I was able to take, don't get me wrong, I can take a session, but I'm just saying I don't take sessions. I let the coaches do it. Yeah. So there can only be one manager. So, you know, I don't know whether I could do it. So I don't know where Sean was maybe thinking, you know, he's been a manager all his days and a successful one at that. So, but the two of us get on well. I don't think there's too many egos there, and we're all there for the same cause. We sort of need to get the club closer to Irish League, and that's what our ambition is. But as I say, St James is obviously an ambition, and so did Belfast Celtic. And, you know,
so even if you win the league, you're potentially in a playoff.
We actually felt the first year when we were going really well, we sort of felt that you know, potentially the playoff could be more difficult than winning the league at the time. Yeah. You know, and that can still be the case. But as I say, a few teams have strengthened around us, so it's not going to be easy. But we'll give it a good lash. It's good fun. I'm enjoying it, and that's you know, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Incidentally, just because it's relevant, who do you fancy for the Intermediate Cup semi-finals this week?
It's tough. That I think I fancy St James's to beat Dollingstown. I really would. And again, I would probably fancy Belfast Celtic to beat Newington at the minute. I know Belfast Celtic were very unlucky the last time they played. I think they played each other last year. And but I'm a Newington fan, and I hope Newington do it okay. But I just have a feeling that it's going to be an all West Belfast final. I just get that thought, you know.
Yeah, this podcast will be coming out on Saturday, so we'll find out the result the night before then. So well, before we've figured out if your predictions are correct or not. But in terms of, like, obviously promotion's the name as well, but you're seeing those teams that you want to compete against to get in the Irish League. I take it you want to compete against them in the cup competitions as well, something that you're known for.
Definitely, you know, Sickner last year, we got the quarterfinals of Stephen Sons, and we absolutely dominated the match at home. The Linfield Swifts, we absolutely battered them, and we beat Bangor in the second round, and we beat Bangor very convincingly at Bangor. We were beating Bangor 3-0. They scored a consolation later on. It's a very strong performance from us, and we beat Killylea away, and we've got a really good feeling about it. And then we played Linfield Swifts in the quarterfinals at our place, and we dominated the game. Absolutely dominated. We must have missed 4 or 5 one-on-ones, and big Josh Robinson scored from a corner, big as 1-0, and it sort of hurt me big time because I sort of felt that was the year where we're going to make a breakthrough. And you know, we would have played Larnaca, I think, with semi-finals. So you know, but we dominated a good Linfield team, and then they went on to win it. So you know, it was hurtful. And funny, the year before, Sirocco Works beat us in the first round, Stevenson's, and they went on to the final. Yeah. So those competitions is where we need to be. To be honest with you, and I don't mean it because of the semi-finals are coming up, but in my time management, the intermediate was never for us. Yeah. You know, I'll probably change my mind next year because, you know, there's not as many teams in it, and the Championship 1 clubs aren't in it anymore. But it always seemed an awful lot of games in a rough time when you were trying to compete for a league title. You know, intermediate games. Like I remember one year, Newington were trying to win the league, and we're in the intermediate cup, and the game was postponed 3 weeks in a row, which meant they kept
3 league games.
So with no league games for 3 or 4 weeks, it nearly killed us. So I always felt that, you know, the intermediate wasn't for us. But yes, I would like to be dueling swords with Belfast Celtic and Dunloy and St James's and the Newingtons and the Macs. So they're the type of teams where we want to test ourselves, you know.
Yeah. What I want to do now, mate, is ask you a couple of questions just about your time managing, playing, or if you want to talk about playing. The best player you've either played with or coached.
The best players that I've had for any length of time at Newington, without a shadow of a doubt, is Danny Hale and Sean Adams. Yeah. They only played a few games together. Danny was sort of finishing as Sean was coming through, but they won the Border Cup in the league with me in the first year, and they were both playing the quarterfinals that day against Larne. But Danny Hill is an absolute Rolls Royce, gem of a player, left peg. Was good friends of mine. Played that role. He was at the club before I came, and real die-hard Newington man. So, you know, in terms of longevity, Danny was untouchable. But Sean was such Mr. Reliable, great centre half. You know, captained the team, led by example, put his head where people wouldn't put their boots. Just a brilliant guy to manage. You know, I always sort of felt intimidated in the first couple of seasons, if I'm being honest. Sean Adams scored goals in Europe for Cromwell and played at a good level. And then I'm trying to tell Sean Adams how to play centre half. You know, and I never done that. So, you know, I used to give Sean Adams a shirt, and me and him would have sat at night and talked about things. And, you know, but absolute super player. And listen, a lot of honourable mentions. Neil Quinn, Cormac Brannigan, you know, guys like that in the old days. Skin little player for me. I know he was poor at the time; his legs were gone. But you had but at Crewe again, you know, it's been a pleasure to manage George McMullen. Yeah. He's a player who I idolised. As a big Cromwell fan, you know, what he's done for the club is tremendous. So although he was, you know, he'd seen better days, he was still great to have in your squad and to manage and to listen to him. You know, you get shivers up my back even listening to him in the huddle and what he'd done for the team. And I knew kids coming through. Whenever I was going to try to sign a player for Crewe at the start, I used to bring Jordy with me, and me and him used to go in the car. Because people said, George McMullen's, you know, they must be doing things right. Yeah. So Jordy was an honour to be involved with, you know, a player that I idolised. Ronan Skinnell played for a wee bit as well. And, you know, never loses it, has a bad knee, but a super player. And so there's been a lot of quality players that have came and gone throughout my time managing, you know. But in terms of players that were the best for me over the period of time was Big Adams and Danny Hale.
Yeah. And Sean Adams especially, I remember watching him loads at Newington over the years when you were winning the amateur league, and he was just a class above in terms of the standard that he was playing at as well.
Different really. He just gave him a shirt, he put his head in the ring. He's the best header of a ball I've ever seen. He got so much power and generation in the header, his timing and everything was great. It was great. Yeah. He's a bit slow, he's a bit slow. I used to, and I'm not being rude here, but I used to say that Newington was full of broken parts or people that had something missing. Do you know in those toy stores they have parts, they have like toys that have wee parts missing from them.
Yeah.
I always said that about Newington, because people used to say if Stud, as Neil Quinn's attitude had been right, he would have played Irish League. If Neil Quinn's attitude had been right, he wouldn't have played for Newington.
Yeah.
You know, if Sean Adams had a bit of pace, he wouldn't have played for Newington. You know, Michael Morgan, Bucko, my mate, if he had a brain, he would have played Irish League. He did play Irish League, but you know, these guys had something that kept them at the amateur league, and there's a reason for that, you know. So, you know, Big Sean's was pace, but in terms of at that level, he was a classist in the Irish League. In the amateur league, he was a tremendous player. So, you know, definitely great times with Big Sean.
Yeah, we spoke about earlier about your best moment in football. What about your worst moment in football? What would your worst moment in football be?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Michael Morgan, I mentioned him there, Buckle, came saying for me same time as Adams. Both had a fallout with Eddie Patterson up at Clinville, and he came down to Newington, and bit of a raker and a bit of a messer, you know, like to cut people's shoelaces and move their tracksuit bottoms around the changing rooms and play practical jokes. He was always doing that sort of thing, you know. But we're playing the Murray Rack at Seaview on a Thursday night, and he went up to head a ball, and a guy called Ricky Rutherford tried to flick a ball on, and Buckle hit at the back of his head, and we had no doctor or physio on the line at the time, but you could hear the thud all around Seaview. It was a Thursday night, it was quiet. You hear the reverberation, and there was a guy helping me out at the club called Rob Martin, passed away, very, very, very untimely, good friend of the club, and somebody that I miss every day. But Rob sort of helped out, and I remember saying to Buckle, how many fingers have I got up? And he was going, you've got 3 up, what's wrong? You let me back on. And he seemed fine. And like me, he's a Spurs fan. And I said to him, who's Spurs playing Sunday? And he went, Bolton, what's wrong? You let me back on. So I let him back on, and he won the ball. They broke. We broke, and we got a corner, and he not even tough for corners. And I seen him looking over doing that. And I was going, what's wrong with him? So he says, right, we'll come off then. So we took him off. And I said, Rob, take him in the changing room. So we went into the changing room, and Rob said to him, he said, throw water on me. And Rob said, what are you talking about? And he says, throw water around me and burn him. So Rob says, I'm taking you to the hospital. So we threw him to the van and took him to the hospital. And we sat in the pint. We had a pint after the game, as we always did. And we sat in the Crusaders bar and had a pint. And Stud rang me. He says, you may get down to the hospital. I says, why? And he says, Buckle's bad. I said, what do you mean he's bad? Because he only, yeah, but he says, serious. He says, it's not looking good. But I couldn't believe it. So as I arrived, his fiancée at the time, Rebecca, she arrived at the same time. The doctor took us into the room and says, listen, he might make us here. He's going to go into a coma. So he developed a blood clot behind his eye.
Right.
And he fell into a coma. So they rushed him to Royal, and for me, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it now, but it was horrific. Absolutely mad. I never seen anything like it. He's in a coma, I think, for 2 days. And he came through, and he's probably still not 100%. He probably still has lasting difficulties from what happened, but it sort of frightened the life out of me, and me and him became sort of lifelong friends since it. You know, it sort of built a bond between the two families and stuff. But I remember on the later side, when he was waking up, because he was always messing about, he woke up, I think, and he said that Spurs won, and say it was 2014 or 2013, whatever it was. Somebody said, but what are you talking about? It's 2030, you know, and we all started laughing, and he sort of, he didn't know whether I was joking or not, but you know, he would have appreciated that. That's the type of joke he would have done with one of us. So somebody said it was 2030, and then he had to try and work out where he was and how long he'd been in the coma and so on and so forth. So definitely my worst moment was seeing him being wheeled away and him being wheeled into intensive care and seeing him land in a coma and just coma. I felt guilty. I sort of felt that I used to pick him up for the games, and I sort of felt that I took him to a game and never brought him back. And that's what always irritated me, you know. Yeah,
but it's one of them things that you can't really control because it's part of football as well. It's kind of the risk we take, really, isn't it?
It is. It's just I was always very protective and you know, bit of a father figure to the young lads coming through, and you know, I took it bad myself. Now it's not about me because of the injuries that he sustained, but I always took it bad because he, as I say, I felt he was my player. He would have went through a brick wall for me, and I felt that I let him down, or you know, he get hurt in action, and you know, it just sort of always wrangles with me still to this day. But we'll talk. I was talking in the night. We talk nearly all the time, but just always wrangles with me, you know, and he was never able to go back and play football again. He was cracking centre half, you know, he played a lot of first team against the Reds, and he was very young still when it happened. And you know, he went back a few times and he was getting bleeds and stuff like that. So, but you know, I remember, I was telling you of the guy that passed away, Rob Martin, who was my inspiration and big help at the club, and we all went to watch Spurs shortly after Buckle's accident, and we watched Spurs were playing Blackburn at home, and we're walking up a Seven Sisters Road, and we went for a pint in a bar, and I had the other two lads were taking a sip of beer, and I said something for a change that was a wee bit funny, and we all busted out laughing, right? But we were only three in the bar, and Buckle tears were tripping him. He couldn't stop laughing. And me and Rob were laughing at him, right? And I could see the barmaid looking at us going, what the fuck am lunatics laughing at? So this laughing went on. And if it was me or you just would have slid into the toilet. And Buckle just stands up, cool as you like, and says, I pissed myself laughing. I actually pissed myself. He pissed his mouth down his legs. Now, it was part of his injury, and the girl looked at us and went, what the fuck are you doing? It always sticks with me. We laughed and laughed. Coming home on the bus and the train and the plane that night, me and Rob went out laughing. Yeah. Didn't literally wet it.
Yeah, he did.
He literally wet it. So, but that was one of the later moments came out of it, you know.
But at least after what he went through and stuff, you still got to go away, get to still spend time with him, see him, and then you can have those enjoyable times after, thinking, thank God that was all it was, really. Like it.
Well, he's a nice family and that around him now, and you know, it's good to see he's doing well.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a pity because he was a great footballer, and you know, it just curtailed his injury very young, and just the way it happened, it was just terrific. I heard the thud because of the ground; it reverberated in the stadium because there's nobody in it. And sort of always stick with me this day, you know, that happened. And as I say, I sort of always tried to look after players. I always felt it was us against them.
Yeah.
You know, and that siege mentality, and I sort of felt that I brought him to the game and didn't bring him home, and it always sort of wrangled with me a bit, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to some of the Twitter questions. I've tried to filter out all the ones where people just decided to take a piss out of your mates, I think. I did get one question which I'm really interested. Well, I kind of know your answer, but it is an interesting topic. Tony O'Neill asked if you had a North Belfast Cup with your Newington team, 5-time amateur league winners, and versus the current Crumb and Star team, who would win?
Newington.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the answer, now you haven't been the answer, but in terms of both teams, it's two massively successful clubs.
I tell you, I've all the admiration in the world, and I'm jealous of Crumb and Star because they've dominated. And when we were dominating amateur league football, we weren't winning doubles and trebles.
Yeah,
we won the league, but they're winning. They won the Intermediate Cup. They won the Clarence Cup. They were winning the Border. You know, they were doing trebles. You know, and I have to admit, you know, they so much admiration for them for that. They've dominated their leagues. Is the league stronger now than it was then? I don't think so. I thought the league was stronger then, but I'm biased.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to say that. But I try to, you know, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. In my opinion, Newington were a very, very good amateur league side, and we had players that could and should have played at higher levels, and we've talked about that. Yeah. And I just believe the likes of Shawnee Adams, you know, those players were better than a lot of Crumb and Star players. But Crumb and Star have some fantastic players too, and you know, I'm always going to say Newington because it was my team, and that's what I believe in. And I'm sure Crumb and Star will say the same thing, and I wouldn't argue with them. But you know, I'm entitled to my opinion, and my opinion is Newington all day long.
Yeah, definitely. Joe McMahon asked about an incident with David Strani at Downpatrick.
I was just asking about some of the battles. Downpatrick caused me a problem because with a lot of respect for them, and I didn't like having respect for the opposing teams. I always like to try and have a bit of edge or a bit of rivalry, and we try to use ammunition every week. And come Downpatrick, Paul Strani, God rest him, and those people had good relationships with Adams, and there was always a friendliness there. They done us brilliant turns to win the league, and we done them great turns. So I can't remember too many battles. We had our luck and they had our luck. They win the Stealing Sons, we didn't. You know, they win leagues, we didn't. But they were one of them teams that you know, we had one of very few teams that we had a relationship with. But I remember, I was talking about this today, they needed to win their last game to win the league during our run, and I was going to Spain my holidays, and I was in Spain that night, and I was at the pool and I was having a few beers, and I sort of took it for granted. We'd all took it for granted that Downpatrick would beat Eamonn McGee in the last game. Yeah. Eamonn McGee weren't good at the time. We took it that was a done deal, and I remember sitting by the pool, and the fellow we were talking about, Bucko, was on the phone with me, and he said, "This is 0-0, and this is 0-0." And I was going, "Sure, fuck, they're going to score." Sure enough, they scored, winning 1-0, and then Eamonn McGee equalised. And then all of a sudden, he was saying, Eamonn McGee's still in this. So he's still one of them, yeah, they'll get one. And then they didn't get one when they thought it was a walkover. And we thought it was a walkover. And Eamonn McGee drew one. It meant by sort of default, we won the league. Yeah. And I was in Spain on my holiday. So there was a good drink that night, and a few San Miguels went down. But, you know, I also remember when Norwich Rangers was between us, Norwich Rangers who'd won the league. And when we were chasing Norwich Rangers, I think we'll win 17 games in the bounce after Christmas. We'll win every game. But we're still miles behind them. We were miles behind them. But we keep players like Gavin Taggart and all the time, and we were playing really well. And we needed them to do us a favour. And I went down to watch it. Downpatrick playing Norwich Rangers, 2 matches to go. And Downpatrick could have, I think Norwich Rangers could have drew and still were happy. But Downpatrick beat them 2-1. And we were down watching the game. And yeah. A couple of players were shouting over to me, "That's for you, big man," and I really, really appreciated it. You know, good people at the time, the Strannies, and I think a couple of Hounds were at the time, and just good people. And they were shouting over, "That's for you. Make sure you win it on Saturday." And we done our bit. We went and beat Cumber 1-0 on the Saturday. Big Darren Murray scored, and we won the league again. And so Downpatrick have always had an affiliation with us. And the first year I won the league, we needed to beat Downpatrick in the last day to win it. So. But I'll always remember. I try to always only remember the good days, not the bad days. So, but good relationship with them.
Yeah. Marty Walsh had asked about the best player and the maddest player at Newington. We spoke about the best players. I think we know the maddest player.
Well, funny.
Or is that different? That's
we were asked this question all the time. I was asked this question. I get asked this question more often than I get asked any other question. And we always say we had different levels of madness at Newington. There was mad, but there was all mad in different ways. There was mad people who smoked dope 2 hours before kickoff, and then were stoned playing the game. I remember a guy was smoking, went off to take a throw and smoked a joint during the match. But you know, you had that level of craziness. You had Peter Gilgun, who won the league 4 or 5 years in a row, or 6 years in a row with Kellylay, and then won 5 league titles Ross. So he must be the most decorated man, I'd say, Uncle Albert, for medals. You know, he's got medals everywhere. But that lunatic used to run about saying he's going to bite people's eyelids off. Not I'll hit you, not I'll punch you. And see, when he said it to you, you were looking at him going, "This fucking guy's a lunatic," right? He's a clever guy, an intelligent guy. But if somebody stands you and says, "I'm going to knock your bollocks, and I'm going to kick you, I'm going to do this," that's fine. But if somebody says to you, "I'm going to bite your eyelids out," people look at him going, "What the fuck?" And he's just a crazy horse. He used to try and put things in his mouth that he shouldn't be putting in his mouth. He just was a fucking lunatic, and a clever lunatic. You know, you had like the likes of wee Mickey Pearce, who he was just a different kind of lunatic. So whenever our biggest game of the season, when we were starting off, was Distillery and the Cup. We were training the Monday night. Pearce went out to drink all day Monday. Texted me and told me to stick my team up my arse. You know what? That type of madness. The kid would have played Irish League, probably never played again for 6 months, but could have played, you know, and he threw it away. And then you've obviously McDonald, who, do you know what I mean, thinks he can play at the world, he can't. And he's the only victory I seen him have was against himself that day. He mentioned it down in Derby. He punched the face of himself. And the referee says, "You may take him off, he's punching the face of himself." Like, I sort of go to myself, what fucking manager in the world has a referee coming over and saying, "One of your players is punching his own face, you may take him off"? Team full of head cases. Your players, we used to drink in the hole in the wall. The players used to turn the you know, some of the players used to turn their phone off and tell their missus the battery died, and that was them out the next day. And one of the players, Eamonn, was playing for me at the time, and I remember his wife stuck a charger in his boot, and he opened his boot and the charger was there, sort of saying, "Don't your battery won't go dead tonight. There's a charger." So the sort of maniacs players that, you know, went out after a game on Saturday, and then you didn't see them the Thursday, and you sort of have different levels of madness. As I say, Gilgun was a crazy in himself, and you likes of Joe and Stud could be a wee bit facetious, you know.
Yeah.
You could start a wee fight now and again. So a lot of different levels of madness, but probably Joe and Gilly were two of the craziest men.
Brilliant. Eamonn, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, mate. It's been very good. Really enjoyed it, and seeing some of your stories as well, from obviously from outside as an amateur league fan, looking in, seeing the success in Newington, and finding out what's went on in the midst of it, and then to see what they're doing with Crewe as well. I wish you all the best of luck in the
I
future.
really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks a million.
No, thank you for getting up your time.
Best of luck with the podcast. I hope you get a few more good people on.
Yes, thank you, mate. Thank you. That's the podcast over for this week. It's sponsored by Learners Ross Driving School and Jumbo Park Racecourse. We'll be back next Saturday with another interview. Thank you.